Hi again. So it's part 3 of the So You Want to Be a Tuner video series, and as I mentioned at the end of the last video, we're going to be talking about, initially, anti-roll bars. Now, anti-roll bars are quite simple in their construction. It's literally just a bar across from one wheel to the other. That's the wheels that are next to each other, not from like one of the back wheels to one of the front, but going across the car on either of the two axles. And it's just a very simple, it's a bar which is curved at the ends to fit underneath the car, and it's under a certain amount of stress, like a spring, and that tensed bar prevents the car from swaying around so much on corners. Now, for road cars, you won't really have your anti-roll bars set that stiff, because you don't need to. The car's not going to be taking corners at extreme speeds. You just need the car not to float around all over the place like a boat. Whereas for track racing, obviously you'll want it stiffer, because as we mentioned before in the last video about springs, etc., having it stiffer reduces the amount of time wasted from wobbling around all over the place to keep the car true, stiff, and to get around corners quicker. And that obviously is what you want from a track car, to get around that circuit as quickly as possible. Now, as far as games, when would and wouldn't you use a stiffer anti-roll bar? Well, for drag racing, you don't really need the anti-roll bars that stiff. You can, but it's not so important for drag racing because it's all linear. You're just driving straight. Where you'd want to have stiffer anti-roll bars is for track racing. So when you want, as we said, to get around corners as quickly as possible. Now, I would pretty much always increase the anti-roll bar strength on any car that I'd buy on a racing game, sometimes even racing cars. I just increase it a little bit more because it's better to have a car, obviously I may be wrong in this, but it's my opinion that it's better to have a car that understeers, or is heavy in other words, around corners, than a car that oversteers all the time. Because if you have a car that's always trying to drift, that's just wasting time. Now, understeer also does waste time because it's more sluggish getting around the corner, but at least with understeer, it's a more controlled waste of time, if you get what I mean. So it's easier to counteract a car that has understeer just by planning for the corner better than a car which will just snatch the tail out at any time, because that's going to just waste loads of time. Obviously it's more beneficial not to have too much of either, but if you have to choose one of the two, I would always go for understeer. So that's about all you need to know really about anti-roll bars. So now we could talk about camber angle. Now the camber angle, in my opinion, is the most what was I even going to say then? Is the most important single aspect of the customizable suspension that you'll find on a game. Your camber angle will have more effect on your car's handling characteristics than any other part of your suspension. Now, with camber, if you imagine I'm in a car coming towards you, so obviously the tyres are going in this direction, the camber angle is this angle. If you're looking head on, that's the camber angle of the car. Now, if you have the car with positive camber, which I think you used to be able to do it on Gran Turismo, but not anymore. Positive camber is when you bring the bottom of the wheel in, so the car looks like its wheels are bending underneath the car. It looks dumb, you know, it makes the car a bit more nimble, but I never have positive camber on any car on any game. Neutral camber obviously is just having the car's wheels upright, in line with the sides of the bodywork. What's the advantage of that? Well, the main advantage of completely neutral camber is that it means you've got the most amount of tyre on the road. So the most amount of grip you could possibly have from those tyres, because you've got the most amount of tyre surface area on the road. Now, when would you have neutral camber? Well, drag racing, perhaps, because again, you're just going in a straight line. You might want a little bit of camber on a drag car, but in general, having it more neutral is better because you need as much tyre contact to the road as possible to get that power down. But for track racing, going around corners as quickly as possible, you will want negative camber, or as most people who don't know so much about tuning call it, stanced. Not saying that that's the wrong term, that is stance in the car, but stancing is basically just another way of saying negative camber. Now, negative camber is when the car is, as we just mentioned, stance. So the bottom of the wheels are splayed out, giving the car a kind of caricatured, cartoonish kind of appearance. But beyond just looking cool on certain cars and dumb on others, it does have very beneficial aspects of doing negative camber to a car, or applying negative camber. So what are those advantages? Well, for a car that naturally slides a lot, i.e. Cobra, TVR, old muscle cars, etc., increasing the negative camber will make the car more stable in corners. It will make the steering a bit stiffer, which is good. It decreases the rear end slip of the car. The main disadvantage in real life is obviously by by having negative camber or stanced, you've only got the inside section of the tyre that's actually got contact to the road. So you will wear the inside section of the tyre quicker than the middle or the outside. But obviously on the game, that doesn't really affect you so much. So I would definitely recommend having negative camber on cars that drift a lot, say four-wheel drive cars that slide, but especially rear-wheel drive cars like muscle cars that you want to tune to get them to go around corners in a much more controlled, more predictable, quicker way. Now, as far as camber, or negative camber, stancing, as far as that goes, you do want to be careful how far you take it, because if you take the wheels right out, that can, on certain cars, make them too stiff for corners. So you want to be careful how much you do, but just adjust it to different amounts and see what feels best for that car. So I'm going to end the video there, and in the next video we'll discuss probably both of the final aspects that we're going to talk about within suspension, and they are the toe angle and the caster angle. So yeah, I'd appreciate feedback. Did you find this helpful? And as always, thanks for watching.